Alrighty, you know it's gonna be a good one if I'm busting out the fives. So if you're a mobile type and you don't have a lot of stability, just getting here might be a benefit of just like hanging out. And then I'm gonna do calf raises. And what you'll find is that this is a lot of pressure. My goal is to have belly contact, not forehead contact, way more uprights, knee dominant, turns off the glutes, turns off the groin a little bit, but it's very difficult to control yourself all the way down, come all the way back up, and that just becomes free and easy. You can imagine if you can do that, going into like a bodyweight squat, front squat lunge is just not that big of a deal by comparison. Recap, my name's Eric. We're gonna go through some pain-free mobility stuff. We'll jump right into it. Goals for today. I can't solve all your problems today, unfortunately. I'm sorry. However, the goal would be somewhere in here, there's a thing that you go, ooh, this really kind of hit the spot. Maybe two things, maybe you get lucky and there's three things. But the idea is all of this stuff takes time. There are no quick fixes. There are no miracle cures. What can we do today? It is give you tools to succeed long-term. Survey, who is a former athlete? Who has experienced like a fairly significant injury that puts you out of commission at some point, a knee, a hip, something? Who's got any ankle issues, past, present, future, knee issues, past, present, future, hips, low back, shoulders, wrists, neck? Anyone had neck stuff? No, you got all the things. I'm not gonna put it back down. So who has, in kind of transitioning into this pain place, worked through something where like, ugh, I don't know if I should do this. I see some nods. So we're all in the same place. We're all doing the same thing. And so we're kind of used to it. Like I owned a CrossFit gym for 11 years and I did all the stuff and I've worked through pain. And so we're all in the same place. So we're not here to impress anybody. We're not working through pain. So where is pain is this kind of like the scale of 1 to 10, where on one side I have absolutely zero absence of sensation. So if you can't feel anything, like if you wiggle your fingers, you're like, oh, there's actually an absence of sensation. There's nothing going on. Versus you might have that knee thing where you're like, okay, there's like a 2 or 3 all the way up to a 10. In general today, I want you guys to think of, we'll work through, let's say 2s and 3s to see where it heads. We're definitely not working through 5s and 6s. And if you find it's escalating upwards, we go back down. So that's kind of the rules on pain here. I like to anchor everything. Like every time I do this, something slightly different, just so you guys have a different way to look at this. So we're gonna anchor this to a front squat. Everyone here front squats. It's high on everyone's register. So we're gonna anchor all this stuff to a front squat, but all of this stuff is good independent of a front squat. So if you find you're like, yeah, my front squat's perfect, I have absolutely no beef here, this is still useful, and I can provide you some context if you just happen to have a really good front squat. Okay, last thing, the mobility archetypes. So I'm not gonna necessarily ask each person to tell me where they're at or anything. It's more about you self-identifying where you're at. But I will ask, is anyone like overtly injured? Like, ugh, my arm, my shoulder, my back, something just doesn't work right now. Okay, so we'll take that into context. But the idea is, this is rock bottom, so to speak. You're injured, you can't do what you want, and we're going to try and work out of injury first, and the rule there has to be pain-free. So if you are actively injured, no matter what we do, it has to be pain-free. Even if that means we have to regress down to like nothing at all. From there, in general, we're going to bifurcate to 2 places. It's either going to be I'm generally mobile and not very strong, or I'm generally strong and not very mobile. So self-identify there. Are you generally on the tighter side, but you can move some weight around? Or are you kind of like, yeah, I got to be careful. I might have too much mobility, which does happen. And in general, that's going to require you to, if you're stiff, we're going to relax into stuff. We're going to use more tempo. We're going to explore end range to basically give you range. And if you're in this more kind of like mobile control. So the idea is, even though all these movements are going to be the same exact movement, they can all be framed in a slightly different way. And I'll give you some individual context based on how it looks and how you present. Then once you overcome that, you end up at bulletproof. And the freak standards, ATG, if you're kind of into that ecosystem, knees over toes, got all that kind of stuff, they've got standards set up that's basically how much can you push, load through range, pain-free, athleticism, all this kind of stuff. So the goal is, no matter where you're at, no matter where you start, it all kind of rolls up to being essentially strong and mobile without pain. We're gonna do a lap walking backwards. Ordinarily, I'd probably start this with a bit of sledding, but just because of sleds and space and turf and all this kind of stuff, this is a really nice proxy for sledding. And if I walk forwards, I'm gonna tend to heel strike. If I walk backwards, I'm gonna tend to toe strike. I'm gonna have some pressure knee over toe. Even if you don't feel a whole lot going on here, it's a great proxy for where to begin with some of this stuff. So that being said, let's go for a lap walking backwards. Just, take the short way, go around, come in between the buildings, walking backwards, a whole lap. I have some questions. How does everyone feel? You'd be like, what are you talking about? I've walked for like 5 minutes. Does anyone feel like stuff going on? It's a little different. So this is very low grade. This is like a 1 out of 10. But the idea is, so I'll share a little fun fact here. Did a study where they took, I believe it was high school kids, and they were all, athletes of some kind. They took half of them and they put them into a regular sprinting and jumping program. They put the other half into a backwards sprinting program. And the people who did the backwards stuff had more gains to their sprint and vertical than the people going forwards. Well, how could that be? Well, at some point, if you are just training the same thing over and over again, front squat or back squat or clean or running or jumping, and you're training, at some point, you've kind of maxed out the fruit that can be extracted from that. So almost anything else that is novel, stimulating that system, is going to help you out. Some backwards sledding, some backwards walking, some backwards hill stuff, some backwards sprinting, you'd be surprised. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is the solution to all your problems. It's more about evaluating of, if I'm already maxing out on the thing that I want to do, what other buckets could I fill that are going to be helpful? Okay, that's the only part here. Let's go over to the wall, and we're going to add in one little piece here, which is the only missing piece to our backwards walking, and that is tibialis raise. So the muscle that's on the front, all I'm going to do is squeeze and raise. Quick recap, leaning against the wall, a foot or so away from the wall, squeeze up as high as you can, hold, hang out. Can't get too high as you possibly can. And then down on like a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, right back up, hold. That's it. But your goal is to absolutely max out on what's going on the front of the tib here. If this starts to poop out, you can walk a little closer to the wall. That's fine. You can even go to single leg. But the idea is nothing's happening because I'm too fatigued. I'm trying to max out. Control, control, control. So an oft underserviced part of the musculature. There was a kind of a time and a space where people thought all problems could be solved with some tib raises. That's not the case. It really is just, if you're not strong here, it would be advantageous for you to get strong here. In terms of front squat, look what's engaged when I go down. I'm basically closing down that space. And if you've ever gotten sore across the front of your shin from front squatting, which I have, that would be why. It should be pretty unmistakable. Everyone is feeling the front of the shins, yes. So if you've got plantar fasciitis, if you've got foot problems, if you've got shin splints, this is a part of the remedy just because, go ahead and relax, just because it is your primary decelerator as I go through life. And if I heel strike while I run, or if I just heel strike at all, and I have good control, I literally can't roll my ankle if I'm too strong. The second I lose that, that's where I lose and start to roll ankles. So a lot of the folks I've worked with who have had to repeat borderline catastrophic ankle rolls, getting them back into a good place by just allowing them to be strong through those ranges. Okay, we're gonna flip it around. This one you can get a little more aggressive with. So we're just doing some calf raises, walk it out nice and far, try and touch my heels to the ground, squeeze up. Can't get too high, can't get too low. Maximum range. We're gonna do the same thing, 90 seconds. If you're touching your heels to the ground, walk it back a little further. If you can't get any further back, you could go single leg. You cannot get too high. 30 more seconds. Hang in there. Again, if you guys scoot it close to the wall to sacrifice the stretch, make it a little easier, that's fine. If you need to shake out the calves a little bit, that's fine. And relax. Take a quick little break, shake it out, roll it out a little bit if you need to. Does anyone feel, I feel like I know most everyone's squats here. Does anyone feel like they get pushed back in their squat, like their ankles just won't go forward? Does anyone have that characteristic? Okay, a little bit of there. So I get 2 things. One is the stretch, and then the tib raise, and then the push is going to help open this up. The downside and the problem is that takes forever, basically. Ankles are like, they just don't adapt very quickly. So if you were like, really want your ankles to adapt, it has to be this daily thing, week after week for like a year straight. And the reason is because if you get, what's the daily recommended steps? It's like 10,000, something like that. 10,000 steps, hundreds and thousands of pounds through your feet. One little set of calf raises just isn't enough. You have to go like above and beyond to make those differences. But you can do it, but it takes a while. This one I really like because let's say you didn't have a sled. Let's say you didn't want to take time to walk around the block. This is what I do whenever I warm up for jiu-jitsu or just activities where I know I'm going to need some knee bend is whatever that is, about a foot. I cruise forward. Heels can come up. That's totally fine. And I'm just reaching forward to tap the wall. Okay. Maybe impossibly difficult, way too far, very, very easy. You decide based on kind of where you're at with your knees. This one you can be a little more fluid and pump oriented. There is no stretch here. So it's a little more oriented towards you do you, feel it out, try a little closer, try a little further as you warm up, inch back a little bit. Your goal would be to actually kind of pulse and rep these out. Very much about blood flow, very much about making your knees feel good. So if you're finding that your knees are a little creaky as you get into your front squats, as you get into squats, lunges, whatever it is, banging out a set of like 80 of these in a row, just pulsing through them, you'd be surprised at how much better your knees feel with fairly short amount of time under task. So perfect adjustment. So the tib raise is almost certainly not going to hurt. Calf raise is almost certainly not going to hurt. As soon as I put pressure out here, you might have pain anywhere around this area. That would be your first indicator of like, okay, there's something to pay attention to in the knees, and it's totally fine to just sit here really close and just pulse through it in time, getting further and further with the idea that eventually you can control yourself all the way down, come all the way back up, and that just becomes free and easy. You can imagine if you can do that, going into like a bodyweight squat, front squat lunge is just not that big of a deal by comparison. Okay, we may have to mix and match a little bit. Less is more. So find the wimpiest band that you feel like you can deal with here. We're gonna do a little bit of shoulder activity. Naturally, I don't have a band, so you're just mirroring along with me. Boom, we got pull aparts. We're going for a lot. We're going for 40. Your goal is to squeeze your shoulder blades together. I don't really care about what's going on in front here. It's all about the squeeze back behind you. So this can very much be a pulse. So we're hitting two primary components of posterior shoulder, this being essentially your rear delt and your post delt, or I'm sorry, your rhomboids and your post delt. Basically everything that takes your arm this way, which as you might imagine in a front squat, I want to have generally the ability to stay up and retracted. Not as good. Next one, you're gonna take hand over hand, one palm up, one palm down. I'm gonna pin this down in my pocket and everything set in place. I'm trying to reach up as if I'm trying to make a one-sided Y. If you have trouble with your front rack in the front squat, this is subtly probably one of the most important things you could work on, which we will break down a little bit more as we go here. So if you were to, obviously I've been doing a lot of talking, we've been coordinating all this kind of stuff. If you were just on your own and you're like, okay, I'll do like a little bit of sleddy stuff, or maybe I'll just skip this and get into this, plus the band stuff, this could literally take you 5 minutes. And so I am a big proponent of how little can you warm up to be accessible to whatever you're about to do? Has anyone ever done the, I'm gonna camp out on the foam roller and then do some band activation and then this and then that, and your warm up is like 45 minutes? Okay. Now, depending on the task, now if you're gonna do absolute balls to the wall, 1 RM cleans or verticals or sprints or something like that, like yeah, you wanna be prepared. But if it's just a working day of squats, quite frankly, I think somebody should be ready in like less than 10 minutes. And if it takes you that long, that implies that there's something in your system that's not working very well. This takes work to get to that place. But my hope for everyone in these contexts is, well, warm up less, be efficient with your workout, and then go live your merry life as opposed to all of this time to just get in, a handful of cleans, because nothing really works until, you've spent all the time doing that, okay? Less is more in my opinion, especially once stuff starts working here. Okay, so speaking of which, getting into the work, we're gonna do 3 to 4 sets of the following: some split squat stuff, some dumbbell stuff, and some seated good morning stuff, okay? I'll demo all these things, we'll go through it, we'll have lots of time, we'll take 30, 40 minutes, lots of time for questions and clarifications, and then we'll get into the next thing here. Split squat with a calf focus. So this is a nice little twist on if you've done like a single-legged split squat type of thing, but this now gets into how can I start to work meaningfully on this ankle characteristic? We don't have a seated calf here. I presume you don't have a seated calf in your living room, so your ability to pressure down and make changes here is going to be limited, especially if you're in a place where like you don't get over that event horizon. Like how can I start to move this forward? So this is a good example of that. Negative on the ankle here. And all I'm gonna do is coast forward as deep as I can go. So if you're a mobile type and you don't have a lot of stability, just getting here might be a benefit of just like hanging out. And then I'm gonna do calf raises. And what you'll find is that this is a lot of pressure. Less is more. What does it say up there? It's like 15 or something? Yeah. If you get 8 good ones, this is fantastic. And immediately I feel this lower part of my calf start to tug a little bit, which is exactly what I would feel if I was in a seated calf machine going through this kind of stuff. But again, if you don't have access to those tools, this is a great alternative. I don't really care what's going on with the back leg, just as long as it's not like wonky off to the side. If you're a little bit bent, I'm not mad at it. We're not talking about like all this like perfect split squat stuff. We're focusing on how much pressure, how much compression of this space can you get in order to facilitate better movement into the base, okay? That's number 1. Alrighty, it's gonna be a good one if I'm busting out the 5s. So if you used to train at my gym, you will recognize this. We're operating a slant here. I'm going post delts, trap 3, and external rotation. So my goal is to minimally swing, minimally do all this stuff. Everything stays fixed in position. I go straight back. This will tend to be the easiest range. So if you wanted to add a couple extra here, that would be great. This is that's, depending on the person, probably gonna be the hardest range. Getting up into here without momentum is very difficult. In fact, a lot of times I have clients just do this with their hands or PVC pipe. So if you want to get in here, and I could actually have somebody sit here real quick, and I just want to give everyone a focal point to focus on. Thank you very much. This is where the stimulus is. So as you, cool, that's it, thank you. As you cook through these, that little string part in the back, which is gonna be oriented towards, boom, you guessed it, staying nice and upright in my front squat. If you find that you fail here, which almost everyone fails here, having more strength through that is gonna be very helpful, okay? Okay, one more movement, sorry. Third of the three-way. This one can be like, difficult to pull off in a motor pattern sense, but I like to think of setting it up here and then there. And then the elbows stay fixed in place. I don't want to just turn this into like kind of a crappy row. I want to think of keeping everything rotational. So those elbows stay fixed in place, okay? Again, less is more. Even just hanging out here, you would find this to be like brutally difficult. If you really want to be like superhuman with it, you can also get posterior chain engagement, and this is just like crazy, but you know, we had 2 of those. This also works. Last one, seated good morning. This is, in my opinion, probably one of the most underrated movements that you can do for all of your squat stuff, your athleticism, applicable to tons of things. So I'm in a back rack position, right? Just regular back squat kind of stuff. Tighter is better. If you don't have the shoulder mobility, this is fine, but your goal is to get like reasonably tight. My width is gonna be maybe like sumo type stance. This is gonna be near impossible for almost everyone. Way too wide, I'll let you know, but somewhere in this space, I push my knees out and I hinge forward. So my goal is to have belly contact, not forehead contact, right? And then if you can't quite make it down, so if you're reaching and it's just, it's not there, better to just hang out, kind of know yourself. Maybe we could put a target there as opposed to reach, and all of a sudden you kind of end up here. It's like, I got it, but at what cost, okay? It doesn't take much imagination to see that the relationship between my hips and my torso are exactly what is required of me when I go into my squat mechanics. And then additionally, if you got a bad back, hell, this is fine. Just tolerating all of the hip rotation and then the length of this lever and keeping that upright is huge. Less is more. When I first started these, I could back squat 300 pounds. I put the bar on thinking no big deal. And I was like, whoa, why do I have like no stability here? So less is more. Use your hands, totally fine. But if you're feeling good with it, this would be something where maybe like 60% of body weight on the upper end. This would be something where you're never going to be doing that with 50 pounds. You're probably never gonna add weight to this, maybe like 15 pounds. But this is one where it's like, all right, how strong do you wanna get? So think just a hair narrower. So it's getting like a little wide and bent here. Yep, and as straight as you can with the elbows. Even if you don't get quite as high, more about like dial it, yeah. Okay. Trail your knee forward until the heel comes up. So the idea is you're floating, yep. So your foot has to work doubly hard. Yep, and then allow this to collapse forward. Yep, through there. So basically, how little space can you operate within? Oh yeah, cool. These look really good. If you're done and you just want to take a break, that's totally fine. We've still got more stuff to do. Arguably the next part's harder. So you guys will be feeling nice and primed, ready to go. Some of this stuff felt easier as you went.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's a very interesting point. If I just set myself to doing bicep curls and I picked, you know, something that was reasonably hard, 30 or 40 pounds or whatever it is, every set's gonna feel worse because I'm basically exhausting the muscle until at some point it just stops moving. If things feel better as they go, that implies that you're getting some within set neurological adaptation. You're learning something new, right? So your muscles can get bigger, but they can also cooperate. So if you can imagine if you've got like a range of motion that isn't particularly good or underdeveloped and like the muscle fibers are kind of like, not really cooperating that well. And then as they go, they start to cooperate more, things open up, you start to feel better. So yes, you're warming up a little bit, you're opening up, but you're also teaching your body to do a thing, which, as you might imagine, has crossover benefits to when you go do the thing that you're trying to do, like a front squat. Then, as you get better and better at this stuff, and you feel good, and you have that ability to kind of like dial in with that, let's say sub 10-minute warm up, Then you go in and every subsequent set of seated good mornings or whatever it is feels worse because you're actually taxing the system as intended as opposed to learning it. Does that make sense? So basically it's the difference between, are you just learning something? Are you making some initial adaptations versus are you taxing that system? Very easy to tax, much more difficult to tax, but it has a lot of payoff when you do. VMO squat. So your VMO refers to vastus medialis. So it's this guy. There's a number of, I think people call these cyclist squats sometimes, but the whole point is I'm now squatting away from what I would do for my body weight squat, my back squat, my front squat, my overhead squat, and I'm getting way more uprights, knee dominant, turns off the glutes, turns off the groin a little bit, but it's very difficult. You'll find you'll want to get to here and you'll want to squat through there because I want to recruit all of this stuff like I do when I'm in my normal squat. Knees forward, spine up, and your test is, can you clear your elbows? If I can't clear, I got something to work on. This also gives me some ability to pressure down on my ankles, so I'll use this a lot. Like I've got these dudes that are fairly strong, but they're stiff and they just can't settle down into a squat. This gives me the ability to push down, whereas if I'm standing flat, I can't really push down into it. I can't get over that hump to push forward into the ankles, okay? So eventually adding weight, nice and upright, lots of tempo, tons of control. This requires, a lot of times people comment that they feel this mostly in their back. Totally fine, because my back is working hard to stay upright. So we're gonna do this on a tempo, nice and slow, hang on the base, maximum knee bends, back up. If you don't have maximum knee bend, if it kind of just collapses, that's a big indicator for how well your knee works from basically here to here. So I want everyone here to have full knee bend. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to just hang out, squat deep, do all that kind of stuff. Let's go over to the wall for groin. So what you guys have probably noticed with this is that we're doing a lot of like deconstruction of the mechanic. So the seated good morning turns off certain components, turns on certain components. VMO squat, same thing. I'm now specifically getting into the groin, nice and tall up into the wall. I want no space back here, no good. Also, I want my feet to be as tight as reasonable. There's something here, but not nearly as good as I'm up here nice and tight. 35 would be very aggressive to start. It's just what I happen to have. Relax, squeeze, not a huge range of motion. Once you get to the floor, so once I'm warmed up, I tend to get like pretty close to the floor. Once you get to the floor, you basically win the game. But the idea is if you're stuck way up here, you've got room to open up, which again, as you might imagine, is very oriented towards being able to settle into a really nice pocket in that front, back, overhead, clean, all that kind of stuff. So now we're getting into the weeds a little bit. Anyone ever done one of these? Okay, why does that happen, okay? If I could hold on, it's probably never gonna happen. But as soon as I start to flirt with all this stuff, that's when I lose it. So why am I doing that? Well, one piece, this isn't necessarily the same for everyone, is if I'm up here, I'm here, I'm coming from anatomical neutral. So I need to come through all the way and maybe even be able to over-rotate because I'm gonna lose that as I come back up if I'm tight. And I get to this place where I just can't really hang out. People doing front squats through here, right? I wanna be able to get that rotation of the wrist. So I curl up, I let the weight take me over, I come back down. You may find that this is also very tender on the extensors, which is a different problem for a different thing, but this is gonna engage this, which is going to allow me to get to here, which is gonna allow me to get to here. Not least of which, if you have elbow issues, I've had a lot of elbow issues. Jiu-jitsu, CrossFit, they conspire together to basically give you the worst elbows on the planet. And this has made it so that I have like pretty pain-free 99% of the time and be able to get through those ranges. Lat pull over, maybe the most dangerous of all the movements here, just because it can get away from you rather quickly. And if you don't have great shoulder mobility, hanging out in this deep end range can get a little spicy on the shoulders. So my feet are tucked underneath, my hips are low, and I'm trying to make as straight a line as I can with the elbows, and then get as deep as I can with the hands, come back up. There's nothing for me up here, so it's really just kind of this last 15 degrees, come back up, and repeat, okay? If that is too much, we've got variations, we can do different things with the bench, but yes, this can get a little pinchy in the shoulders if you've got some shoulder stuff. Can you push this forward? Ah, there it is, yep, cool. Doing a great job with the spine. As you do more, after you add load, your goal is to stay perfectly upright the whole time. Not allow the hips to shift like you're doing like a regular back squat. So go ahead and pause on the next one. Can you push your knees a little more forward? Yeah, there it is. Try and go straight up from there. And then on the way down, try to avoid recruiting with the glutes. Try and go straight down and then straight back up. So this is gonna get way quad central. But this is gonna allow you to control that great mobility you have and just get really comfy here so you don't have anything to worry about in the base. Yeah, fantastic. So your number one goal is, can you say, it's even creeping back in, right? So it's as you go down, kind of once you get to here, you're trying to stay as upright as you can. And push straight up from there. Yeah, and then straight down into there. Yeah, cool. Just like that. Okay. All right, guys, let's wrap up whatever set you're on. If you want to zoom around to one more thing, that's totally fine. We'll do a little Q&A. We'll stretch while we do that and just cash this whole thing out.